High achievers don't quit. So, what do you do when the goal you've chased your entire life isn't the goal anymore? What if the most courageous move isn't achieving the goal, but changing it? This episode is part of the Disruptor series, Real Stories of Ambitious Professionals Who Expanded Their Vision Beyond a Single Career Identity. Today, Dr. Zhen Chan shares how letting go created something better than the original plan. So, listen in. Welcome to Success Reimagined. I am Dr. Amna Shabir, your host on this journey to thrive at the intersection of ambition and wellness. In every episode, I'll help you challenge outdated definitions of success, discover practical tools and strategies for growth without compromising your well-being. I am so glad you've joined me. Let's reimagine what's possible together.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zhen Chan. I'm a pediatrician, and I'm also a founder of a startup and community called Grapevine, which is a community for physicians and medical students to get together and get some professional development resources and networking opportunities. I live in DC. I'm from Miami, and I love spending time with my dog.
Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Chan. I'm so happy to have you today.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Shabir. It's great to be here, and I'm excited to chat.
For the rest of the talk, I'm going to be calling you Zen, and you can call me
Oh,
Amna.
please.
I want our audience to learn more about Grapevyne and your journey into being a founder. It's been an interesting road, and I've been witnessing part of that journey. So take us down that road.
Sure. So, growing up, I was always like, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to take care of patients. I wanted to take care of people when they were sick and be there to help them be healthy. And when I went through medical school and residency, it, for the most part, stayed consistent. Like, this was the path, this was the right path I chose. But I think there were just a lot of different moments in residency that started steering me towards this thought of, am I actually doing the thing that I've trained my entire life to do, right? Like so many years. And I felt like what we were doing was more putting band-aids on situations. And the way that I was practicing medicine and training to practice medicine was almost this kind of like box checking thing. And among all those moments, there was one that was particularly sound when I was in the emergency room and I had an attending who I was trying to help a patient like get discharged as quick as possible. I didn't think that they needed too much. A lot of just workflow delays were the reason why they weren't getting out. And so I was doing some of the, making phone calls and trying to coordinate some issues on the back end. And I was basically yelled at to stop and focus on being a doctor. And I'm like, this is being a doctor, right? I'm trying to get the patient out of here in this busy emergency room and get them home where they can be safe and healthy and all this kind of stuff. And that was sort of like the straw on the camel's back. And I also knew I really enjoyed quality improvement type work. I really enjoyed advocacy work. And so I just started exploring what is everyone else doing in healthcare that isn't being a traditional doctor, nurse, and PPA, those patient-facing roles. Through that process, I learned about venture capital. I learned about early stage startups and investing in them and how there's this entire ecosystem that could potentially put money where it really matters. And I really like that idea. And so I had an opportunity to be with a VC fund as like an unpaid intern for a bit, caught the itch of entrepreneurship and wanted to build something on my own, but actually got connected with a venture studio. So more of an incubator model where they're creating ideas and projects internally and coming out and looking for people to take it out. They had this idea called Grapevine. And it was focused on improving how doctors find jobs. And when I heard about what their idea was and what they were building, I pitched back to them. I said, I love this idea because I think it solves this pain point for a lot of doctors who are constantly getting spammed by recruiters and getting sold these jobs that maybe are not actually the best for them. And then they get into these roles. They realize really quickly that they're burning out very quickly. It was never the right fit. And they, that increases that attrition rate and that churn. But in addition to all of that, in addition to solving that pain point, what I pitched back to the studio and what I hope was one of the reasons why they brought me on was I had this vision that if we're going to bring these doctors to sign up for this sort of new platform that can improve how we find jobs, I wanted to all of the other tools for our professional development as well, and also improve how we network. I think as physicians, as we go through the training process, networking is not emphasized in our profession the way it is in the business world, in the law world, in tech, even. And also, everything that we care about that's about like expanding our impact on patient care, or, and I include things like advocacy, like research, getting involved in some of the tech side of things when it comes to new innovation. You don't get exposed to any of that. And so I had the vision of wanting to provide a community to give those things and at a very affordable way. So was going down that road. That's how Grapevine started. And over the last 2 years of building this, I pivoted away actually from that job product. It took me a bit to try to commercialize it. And it actually, because there was so much focus needed to build that core feature and to make that financially successful, it actually took away from my ability to focus on the community side. And so when discussions occurred to actually really pivot Grapevine, I said, I want to just focus on the community. I just want to focus on this professional development piece. I had a lot of feedback from members saying that's actually where they found things to be most valuable. I also realized that I wasn't really solving the pain point I hypothesized I would when it comes to the job problem. So almost because of the failure of monetizing and really scaling that job piece, it gave me the opportunity to focus on the community piece now for almost the last year. And I've enjoyed that so much. It's been really fulfilling for me to travel the country, help other doctors network, help them find resources for all of these ancillary sort of interests that they have, and then allow them a space to have these conversations that they can't during work. So that's been truly fulfilling. And it almost turned that sort of quote unquote failure into, in my opinion, a success. Yeah, so that's kind of where Grapevine is today, and the journey of where I started as just wanting to be a doctor in my life to now being this kind of hybrid entrepreneur, physician type, community architect type person.
Wow. And I've, like I said, witnessed some of that. And it takes tremendous courage to openly come and share about, wanting to have a certain vision and you're going on that vision and then openly actually talking about how you pivoted, because
Mhm.
that's where a lot of the conversations that I have surrounding perfectionism come into play. When you have this vision of a specific goal and the goal surrounding monetization, whatever the goal is, and you zero in on that and then you don't hit that goal, but on the way to the goal, you realize that there's so much other amazing goodness that has been created to support the community part
Mhm.
that has actually taken off, another part that's taken off. Now, if you are in that rigid mindset of like, this is the one thing that I set out to accomplish, you're really not going to have the courage to share as openly as you did, because all of us are struggling on the entrepreneurial journey. It's like
Yeah.
nobody wakes up and says, okay, I set out to do this and it was smooth sailing.
Right.
If that happens to you, I question if you're actually truly challenging yourself. So I really appreciate you sharing that with me. What gives you that courage to actually talk about this today with us?
I think I love when people are relatable and they can talk about their journeys that I can learn something from. If me being able to speak transparently, vulnerably about my own failures, about my own setbacks, and where things had to change allows someone else to be willing to kind of take that step, I think that's what gives me the courage to be very just outspoken about things going wrong, quote unquote wrong.
Yeah.
Is that idea that someone can find that relatable and someone can take that and be like, "Okay, I'm not necessarily doing everything wrong myself, and I am also facing these similar setbacks that this person is, and look at where they are now." This gives me some more motivation to kinda just, like, keep hanging on and maybe make some of these pivot choices myself.
Yeah. I mentioned perfectionism, but I am curious to learn a little bit about your journey through this.
Mhm.
Have you ever felt like you have been exposed to perfectionism? You are a perfectionist. I know that I say this with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
As you look at your childhood, culture, upbringing, medicine, take us
yeah.
through wherever you want to.
I think when any conversation around perfectionism takes me back to childhood, for better or for worse, oftentimes I think for worse, if I had to be honest, there was a lot of external validation seeking in order to define what success was. And so anything around what is perfect or needing to be perfect was solely based on the grades. It was
Mm,
based on someone saying good job. It was like looking at that science fair board the other person did, perhaps because their parents had a little bit more money and was able to afford the better construction paper than you did. And so they were able to have the better board, but not being able to have that science fair board the same way they did and as creatively or with like as flashy as it was. These were all external validation seeking pieces that defined success and what was perfect. And I think it does, like, that was such a critical period of growing up that it translates to, everything later on. And the medical path sort of reinforces that continuously, right? Like, it's always about your board scores, your test scores, the amount of publications now that you have. Now that, like, one of the side things that is happening because step one has gone past fail, like everybody's saying, oh, we need to have more publications, regardless of the quality of the publications. It's just how many you can have on your resume. And I'm just like, man, like these are all external factors. What is actually internally driving you? And I think more recently and through that period of time during residency that I mentioned earlier, where I was going through sort of that identity crisis of like, I don't think I'm actually helping people stay healthy. Yes, I am taking care of a lot of people when they're sick, but maybe what I actually envisioned myself doing growing up was keeping people healthy. And there are so many different ways to be able to do that that caused me to explore, caused me to have a little bit of that questioning of the identity of what success truly means. I think at that time it was like success was about, just going through the traditional tunnel, getting into residency, getting into fellowship, then moving into a leadership position there. Um, Redefining that and saying, oh no, I might have a very personal path I can take and allowing myself the ability to take it. Even though there were so many people that along the way were like, "Why would you do that?" Or like, "Oh, no, you're
mm.
distracting yourself from being a doctor." And that sort of negative talk, I'm glad never swayed me from making the choices that I did. And now chasing perfection, I like don't really chase it anymore, I think. Like I don't there's nothing to tell me that like I don't need a straight A's. Like there's no straight A's equivalent anymore more if that makes sense. There is no getting a 245 on step anymore kind of equivalent or whatever a perfect score is. I don't know what a perfect score is on step 1 is. And so it's all about like am I doing the best that I can leading to the impact that I want to make?
Hmm.
And it's more about trying to chase that like internal validation and what I want out of my life, right? And I think of sometimes, I mean, I know I'm pretty young, but like I always think of what will I end up saying in my deathbed? Like, what am I going to, what will be the things I regret, right? And reminding myself of those entities. And so, I'd like no longer chase that perfection standard, if that makes sense. I hope that answered the question a little bit.
Oh, it answered the question and some because it reminded me. I mean, I totally forgot about the publication race during this
Yeah.
entire process. I'm like, wow, oh yeah, I remember that when we were comparing the lengths of our CVs as well, right? So the social comparison, which is absolutely like it never ends.
Hmm.
Now, I want you to look at your complex identity. I invite you to look at it,
Yeah.
right? You are a founder, you're an entrepreneur, you're a community builder, and you're a pediatrician.
Hmm.
That's, like, one of my most favorite doctors because I am always happy because of my kid's pediatrician. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So you have this complex identity, all these different roles, and now we think about perfectionism, and you're saying that you no longer ascribe to that, validation requirement from the outside, and
Hmm.
what shifted?
Oh, that's a great question. I think part of what shifted is like maybe there's no such thing as perfect. Maybe it's about just balancing all the different things. Because if you want perfect, if you want 100% of everything, it's like you want this perfect vision of what a family is. You want this perfect home with the white picket fence and have the nice car. And then like on the work side, you want to be the CEO and not have to answer to anybody. On the friend side, you want to be able to hang out and make every single event and you want to be able to go to every birthday party no matter what. Like something's got to give. And it's more about finding that balance of where it all makes sense for you and what fills your cup, as opposed to trying to be 100% of every single thing. And because that's just going to burn you out like very, very quickly, especially if you're doing certain things because that's just the hustle culture and like what you think you need to be doing, as opposed to what's actually fulfilling to you. So I don't know if there's a specific moment that shifted. It definitely was a gradual learning process of trying to deviate away from like, I got to get everything done. I got to like be exactly the ideal version of Zen for every single person. Like, I think it's just a gradual process of saying, I think it's okay to find balance in these things, and sometimes you got to relinquish one over the other. And it's something that I am continuing to gradually get better at. Ironically, it's almost like I'm trying to perfect not being perfect. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense. And what I heard you say was that you realized, and I'm going to phrase it like this, you
Yeah,
realized that you were not a unicorn and that you're a
right,
human being. So you transitioned more into your human form because in your human form, as who you are going to make mistakes.
right.
You are going to set a goal and have to pivot and change and realize, yeah, you can't keep everyone happy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when there is a mistake, when there is a failure, finding that silver lining, finding that like how are you going to come back from this, as opposed to just fixating on it being a failure and then using that to translate into am a failure, right?
Mm.
Like that is as toxic, as unproductive as it can possibly get. But like with Grapevine, like with my own personal identity of having gone through years and decades of training to be a doctor and realizing, wait, there's something else that I think I want to do as well. Like those aren't failures. They're just ways of changing your mindset. Those are just ways of like learning something new and maybe turning into a new version of yourself.
And allowing yourself that moment to be flexible and expansive. So that is incredible. Zen, you've shared so many wonderful points with us and so much wisdom with just sharing your journey. Now, I want you to look back. I invite you to look back
Mhm.
at your life again. And just only a couple of years ago, when you're setting out to start your company at that time, what advice would you have given your younger self? I know
Oh
this
gosh.
a lot of times we go way, way back, but I want you to put your entrepreneur hat on. Like,
Yeah.
what do you wish you had known at that time?
There's so many things I wish I knew that was just like it's just like technical things. Man, like filing business taxes, like that's not helpful for this audience, but I like wish I knew stuff like that. What would I tell them? I think recognizing actually two things, being patient and not in the moment overemphasizing all those little moments of setbacks and like almost letting that completely derail the rest of your day or maybe even the next day. So having a little bit more of that emotional fortitude almost to say, yes, this is a setback, but we get over it. We do other things and there's other ways to kind of continue to find success. Same as earlier, like what I talked about in terms of gradually finding out that nothing's going to be perfect. That's one. The other is learning how to rely on other people. I think and this is probably true of a lot of doctors, but a lot of just high achieving individuals, not just physicians, you feel like you can do it all on your own. When something isn't getting done quick enough or like the way you want it, you kind of take this perspective of like, I'm just going to do it myself. And I would definitely tell myself from 2 years ago, like, and even myself, remind myself now, to be honest, like, rely on others, spend more time doing that. And sometimes if truly something's going wrong that like they're not doing things the way you want them to, and it actually causes some downstream problems, like take the time to teach. Take the time to like have that conversation to go through it. And then so next time it won't happen again. Doing that as an exercise to improve yourself, your own patience, as well as the person who you're working with or you're mentoring or you're teaching or whatever it is. I think that's a bit of advice I would tell myself. Rely on others and trust the process.
I will take both of those pieces of advice right now, and because I feel like trust and patience are again and even delegation and
Mhm.
teaching, a lot of what I shows up for me is other-oriented perfectionism and just like this, "It needs to be this way, and it needs to happen now, and
Yep.
why is it not happening now? I've done everything that I need to do." Of course, now it's not happening as much, but I can see when I had started my entrepreneurial journey, like, I just felt like I couldn't share with people the growth, like, it just had to have all the answers,
Mhm, mhm,
this extremely polished appearance from the first day, and that's
mhm.
just not true. It's just not real, but you do everything and you I now encourage everyone to layer everything with layers and layers of self-compassion. That's
Yeah,
always been my thing.
yeah. One thing I've always done, I think relatively well, is feeling okay with not having the answers all the time. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially, and actually in the physician world, physician entrepreneurs, especially, like because patients ask you and look at you as that authority figure. And in entrepreneurship, you like talk to investors, you talk to clients, you always feel this pressure to have to give the best answer possible and always feel like you can't say no, or you can't say, I don't know, or you can't say, like, I'm not sure, or like we don't have that feature, or I don't know how to solve this right now, I need to look this up. One piece of advice I would give to any entrepreneur, any young doctor, is it is very okay to not know something. It is very okay also for your company to maybe not have thought about that pain point or that problem point for your client, and say, yeah, we have not built out that feature yet, but would you mind, actually, let's have this conversation. I would love to learn more about that and see if it's something that I can incorporate through our product. We're early, we're nimble, we're only like 2, 3 people. We can maybe, if this is truly a pain point for a lot of for you and for people, other groups like you, maybe this is something we'll bake in. Same thing on the patient side. Like if a patient asks you a question you're not truly sure, I mean, it's okay. Like a lot of patients understand we're not encyclopedias, that in our brain, and so it's okay to say, "Hey, let's why don't we actually look this up together and talk through this management plan? This is getting a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I'm going to need to either talk to a consultant or maybe read up on this a little bit and just be honest about that." I think I've always been very good at that piece, and it's served me very well too, because people relate to that and people understand and are always very forgiving, or generally mostly very forgiving, when you are honest about them in that way, honest with them in that way.
That was an excellent point. Very refreshing take. And for me, what was coming up is I felt comfortable doing that in my role as a physician,
Hmm.
especially when I went out and was practicing full-time primary care. Like, there's no way I'm going to know everything 100% all the time.
Hmm.
And also, it's a dangerous assumption to make. So, what I would tell my patients is if there's a doctor that tells you they know everything about
Yeah.
everything all the time, because while we're talking, medical education is being updated, medical research is being updated, there's a lot of stuff that's already outdated. So, I should not be making that claim. So, I
Hmm.
felt comfortable pulling this actually the computer screen, looking things up together with the patient, creating a collaborative process.
Yeah.
But when I went out for setting out to be an entrepreneur, because what social media does is it shows you curated highlight reels. So the perception in the start is like this everyone has it together all the time.
Yep.
So I love that you phrased it in such a wonderful way where it actually opens the door to so much learning, so much curiosity that way. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And especially now with AI and information at the palm of your hands by just a prompt and a question, I think that turns a lot of cerebral cognitive type jobs, like I think like the internal medicine people of the world, the family medicine, the pediatricians of the world, like our job is now being that steward of the information, being stewards of the information. It's helping guide the understanding of all of this information that like is in the palm of your hands. And so, I had this discussion with other people, and it's like I think AI will put pressure on us to actually be better doctors as opposed to like AI replacing doctors. But that's a conversation.
That was an interesting take. Yes, because you have to be a good doctor to be able to use AI. If you don't know how to understand biostatistics, then you're just gonna like say yes to everything open
Right.
evidence is throwing your way.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
I love that take.
Yeah.
This was wonderful, Zen. As we wrap up for today, because you know I can sit and chat with you for a while as we did before
Likewise.
we press record. What are any take home points for our audience that you want to add?
Hmm.
Anything else?
I don't know about add, but I think, just reiterating some of those points of like perfectionism is this like ethereal, vague, cloudy, hazy thing that is just like impossible to reach. And it's just up to you to define what personal success means. And don't chase those external validation points and always compare yourself to what other people are doing that makes things seem like things are perfect in their world. Because I can bet you it's probably not perfect in their world. And they're also going through their unique sort of personal journeys. So success is very personalized in that way. Find balance in everything that fulfills you. And then, give yourself the grace of making mistakes, turning those mistakes into perspectives for success, right? To learn from them. And then the final thing, just be vulnerable, be relatable, be transparent with people. Most individuals you encounter, regardless of the industry you're in, are going to be far more forgiving of you being with when you're honest with them than when you like make something up that just plain isn't true and then they find out afterwards, right? You can always work together with your client or work together with your patient to figure something out. If you're lying to them and you're never having that dialogue, it's probably nothing's going to really work out that way.
A lot of practical and motivating thoughts there. I appreciate you sharing them. How can our audience members learn more about where you hang out, connect, and learn about Grapevine and all the amazing things that you're doing right now?
Sure. I'm on like every social media platform. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can search my name, Zhen Chan, MD. And then on Instagram and TikTok, Instagram, I'm Zen underscore MD. On TikTok, I'm just Zen MD without the underscore. I like to post a lot of educational content about the health system and all of these ancillary things that affect patient care and population health that we may not be thinking about as physicians or just have plain never gotten educated about. And then Grapevine itself, if you come to grapevine.health, Grapevine spelled with a Y, that's my community. It's for doctors, med students, NPs, PAs, and those that are training to be APPs. And it's really to be that accessible, free, digital community, digital first community to access all that education, all of the networking opportunities, the professional development resources that I think we should be getting during our training, but unfortunately, maybe we just don't have the time for. And so, yeah, you can find me in all those different ways. And I'm always happy to chat with anyone, especially if there's something I can help with.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Amna.
You might believe you don't have the time or energy to focus on yourself, but this is exactly the right time to get serious about your well being. You don't have to do it all alone. I'm here to help. If you enjoyed this video and are ready to take the next step, head over to dramnashabir.com where you'll find free resources you can access right away. The website link is below. Let's get started on your path to thriving.